Hello, readers. Trisha Goyer here. I have Rachel Hauck in the house. Rachel, I'm
Woohoo!
so glad that you are here. Okay, we have known each other for a long time. I've loved so many of your books. So I'm super excited to talk about your new book today. But first, before we do that, why don't we just start by having you introduce yourself?
Oh, all right. First of all, Trisha, thank you for having me. And I remember we first met at what used to be called the CBA or the ICRS retail kind of Christian market book and trinket book and stuff show.
It was a lot of trinkets too, and a lot of
Yeah.
books. Yeah.
Yeah, a book. Let's say a resource. It was a resource show for Christian retailers,
Yes.
and so yeah, we've known each other for a long time. So I'm Rachel Hauck. Hello, everybody. I am a New York Times, USA Today bestselling author of The Wedding Dress and many other titles. And I live
Hmm.
in Central Florida, and I'm married to my husband Tony, 32 years now. He is a pastor. I lead worship at our church, and I love to teach writers and mentor writers. I'm not a mama, but I am an OPK of other people's kids. Mama of OPKs, other people's kids.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we all love having people in our kids' lives that will pour into them. I have a
Right.
friend that she'll take my kids out for, like, coffee, and they're like, "Miss Gina said this, and Miss Gina said that." I'm like, "I have literally been telling you the same exact
Oh,
thing." Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. When we did youth ministry, which we did for 20 years, Tony for 25, um, the parents would come up to us and go, so and so just came home last night and repeated to us everything we just said, but in Tony speak. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, let's talk about Meet Me at the Starlight.
Yeah.
It's so fun. So it's a well, it's interesting because it's a split time, but even the contemporary isn't like contemporary like today. So it takes place in
Right.
the 80s, which is super fun because that was like my high school. I graduated in 89. So like all the
Okay.
stuff that's mentioned, I'm like, okay, I remember all these things. What does that
Yes.
say about me? I'm a little bit older, yes, but so we have historical. I'll have you talk about that, and then uh more recent past. But tell us about the story and yeah, a little bit about what these two timelines are.
Yeah, so Meet Me at the Starlight is set in North Florida in a fictional town called Sea Blue Beach. So if anybody's been to Destin or Niceville or Fort Walton
Yes.
Beach, it kind of picture that. So that's where I stuck the story. I'm a Florida girl, so I just thought let's just stay home and write books about things that I know about in places that I've been, and because you can add an authenticity to it that you can't. No,
Mhm.
when you're researching places, you have to work a little bit harder. Anyway, I love the 80s. The Best Summer of Our Lives, which came out last year, was set in 77 and 97. So I just really feel like we don't have a lot of stories in that mid 20th
Mhm.
century. And, just so many fun things like with roller skating and some of the music, and of course, our big Farrah Fawcett hair.
I
And,
know.
right. So originally, I had the idea of just straight up contemporary our time of a supermodel who lost her career because she ate her way out of it because she had a broken heart. And so for models, you and I can struggle a little bit with 10 or 15 pounds, but they cannot.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
she was my original character. And then I ended up writing Fifth Avenue Story Society. So I set that one aside. So I pulled it back out, kind of retooled it, and ended up developing a character called Tuesday, who you love and I love. And she's kind of
Mhm.
our historical character. We see her in the 30s throughout the 60s, and we get a glimpse of her in the 80s as well. And Tuesday is just this extremely strong, confident woman that I think we all aspire to be. I think I was
Yeah.
writing in her what I wanted to be, and writing in her like, I hope if this was me, I would have this character in me to respond the way she responds. Her husband's involved in the gangs and the mobs trying to find his way after the Great War. And she just sticks by him. But she's the manager of this thing called the Starlight, which is a roller skating rink. And Beth Vogt gave me that idea. And the minute she did, we both went ping. That's what the
I
Starlight
know. I
is.
love it.
I
Yes.
know. So out of the blue, I was going like dinner club, jazz club, music club, theater. I mean, those things are done so much in fiction, and I've done them in fiction. So this skating rink was just a brilliant idea. And then we go to the 80s, and Matt is kind of a brat packer kind of A-list actor. He went out to California to play football and ended up, as Granny would say in the pictures, Tuesday is his grandmother. And he's trying to get his life on track. He carries a deep wound to something that happened with a friend. And so when his grandmother calls and goes, "I think I might lose the Starlight," and I never set out to write, a save the clock tower, save the
Yeah.
Starlight, Back to the Future, save the Starlight kind of story, but that's what ended up happening
Mhm.
because for all my motivations to get everybody back into town. And so he goes home to help his grandmother. Um, and what's funny to me is Andrew McCarthy just released a documentary called Brats about the Brat Pack of the 80s.
I saw that, yeah.
I'm
I
like,
haven't
this
watched it yet, though. I want to, though.
it's really good. And what's so funny to me is I'll with my previous book, I never heard of the Girl Scout murders, and it's a backdrop. It's not what the book is about, but it's something that happens, that our girls in the story learn about. And then there were 2 documentaries released as I was writing the story, which I had never even heard about it before. And I'm like, "Man, I don't know, I'm catching the trends here." And,
Yeah.
roller skating's back. I see roller skating commercials, and
Yes.
so it's just really kind of fun time to look back into the '80s. And then Harlow Hayes, the supermodels, Christy Brinkley, actually, I think Cindy Crawford was the first
Mhm.
supermodel, but there were supermodels from the early days. Modeling is a very young industry. It wasn't really modeling agencies, and kind of the fashion that we see modeling today didn't really happen until like the 30s and 40s. Um, there was a supermodel, and she was called a supermodel. I can't remember her name because she was on 15 magazine covers in a month. So that made her a
Wow.
supermodel. In our day, Cindy Crawford, she was a supermodel because of the money she made. So, and
Mhm.
Imam and Elle Macpherson and some of the others were big in the 90s. Now mostly we see celebrities on the cover of
Mhm.
magazines. So for those of you who may not be familiar what a supermodel is, that's what she was. She was just the girl on all the covers and she made all the money. Um, so Harlow has got a broken heart, and she never in her life has eaten whatever she wanted. Her mom was very controlling. Her mom put her on this path at a young age. And part of her rebellion and her way of healing and kind of in a way taking control of her life was she just started eating whatever she wanted, and she discovered all these delicious foods that she'd never had before,
Yeah.
but that weren't necessarily good for her. And she actually has a house in Sea Blue Beach through a series of circumstances. She goes down to that house to kind of like get her life on track. She has an opportunity before her. Is she going to get herself in shape to take the opportunity, or is she going to find a different way? And so, and it's all kind of centered around the Starlight, this beautiful place that
Mhm.
brings the town together. And for those of you who love my royal stories, there's a little bit of a royal backdrop. So
Yep.
you're going to like that.
I love your royal stories. Those are so sweet, so fun. So what I love too is the humor in it. Like because you kind of get some of their interior, especially Harlow's, her internal dialogue, and she's like, "I have a plan. This is my plan." And then I'm gonna go get pizza. Like, she doesn't
Right,
follow the
right,
plan or
right.
the meetup, I'm not gonna give anything away, but when her and Mac because they had previously been in a movie together, and
Yep.
he
Her
had
first movie.
kinda had a crush on her. We won't go too many more details on that. You have to read the book, but when they have the first meetup again, it is like I was laughing out loud as I'm trying to cook dinner and, try not to burn dinner because I just wanna keep reading, so, it's so fun, and then Tuesday too has a little bit of a she has a little bit of energy and a little bit of sass, and she's still roller skating in her 80s. And I
Yeah.
just remember the music and going around the ring and being the coolest thing ever. I couldn't do many tricks, but it's just that feeling of you're gliding and the music's playing. I'm like, this
Yes.
is, yeah.
The free feeling of rolling. Of course, the reader should know, well, Tuesday skates, and she's very good, and Matt skates, he's pretty good. My brothers skated, and my older brother could do the shuffle, so I gave that to Matt. I never mastered the shuffle. I could do
Oh,
a little
yeah.
bit of skate dancing, turn and turn under the arm of the partner,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
Harlow cannot skate at all. The girl's gorgeous and, tall and, not athletic. So,
Oh, I love
that
it. I
a
love
little
that
bit of
there's so
mental.
much yeah, so much depth. So there is a royal, there's a prince that plays into the story somehow, and then there's the connection with these characters, and then you have Tuesday. So I love there's these emerging storylines, and also sometimes when you have two different storylines, one will be kind of weaker than the other, and then one will be strong. I think both storylines are really strong. You're
Oh,
definitely
thank
into
you.
Tuesdays and like her heart, and you know what's going on, with her marriage. Like I don't feel like okay, let's get past Tuesday so I could get back to Harlow and Matt. No, like I'm enjoying that part, then I'm enjoying the other part. So and then when you see everything come together, it's really special. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
So
It's
fun. Yeah.
fun, intense. I was did a post on Facebook yesterday because 'cause I'd taken a little walk before I dug into my current deadline, and I thought, "Man, I wish creativity was 2 plus 2 equals 4," and you know this.
Mhm,
It's not.
mhm.
For me, it's I write a sentence, and that's 2 plus 2 equals 3 and point 3 quarters. You know, it's like, "Well,
Yeah.
I'm not there yet," you know, and creativity just I pour so much of myself into every story, and I write and I rewrite. I'm on my 3rd rewrite of this book due in July. They're gonna give me
Mm,
notes, as you know, and I'm gonna go back and I'll probably, as much as I can, go through it at least one for sure, 1 more time, maybe 2. So
right.
and then you have all your little edits, your little looking at a word, looking at a sentence. And so I pour so much into it because I want Tuesday to be loved, and there are gonna be readers who just
Mhm.
flat out love Tuesday, and I had
Yeah.
to make sure she did not take over the story. But there's just so much
Yeah.
relatable about Harlow, and then
Mhm.
and Matt, he's just kind of a great balance to both Tuesday and Harlow, and you
Mhm.
kind of feel for him as well because we see a little bit of us. We all make dumb mistakes that have way lasting ramifications, longer than we wanted. The ramifications are
Yeah.
longer than we wanted, and so that's what Matt's really struggling with. And so I feel like um, I just really pour myself into those because I want everyone to see who they are, but maybe see a little bit of themselves in the story, whether
Mhm.
you're one of the
Mhm.
characters or you're a friend of the character.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's both with all of them, there's this feeling of almost having to prove their worth in
Yes,
each
for
of the
sure.
characters, and so I
That's
think all
good.
of us have that where we just have that like, "Oh, yeah, if I could just do this a little bit better," or then you almost wanna give up when you can't, like,
Mhm.
"I'm trying as hard as I can," and so I think there's that, and I'm only, I think, on chapter 8 or around there, so I'm only that far in, and I'm already getting a lot of those themes and messages out of it, so yeah,
Isn't
I'm
that
enjoying it.
isn't that crazy? Like people write to you after they read one of your books and they say, "Oh, I got this out of it," and you think, "Yeah, that's right. Did
That
not
makes
have
sense.
did not have that in mind, but wow, thank you."
Oh, and I think that's how God works through us, so, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Whatever yeah.
Whatever message he has for the reader, and that's what I like to say, that I think books are the only entertainment medium that the reader or the person can insert themselves into it. Now, music
Mhm.
impacts our hearts, and we can float away on the music for sure, and sometimes we see ourselves in a movie, but all those things kind of come at us. I think with a book, you can just be in the story. You see yourself
Mhm.
in the story. You go along with the characters. And I've had heard readers say they don't like first person. I personally love first person, but someone once told me that they didn't like first person because they so related to the character. And if they didn't like the character, then they didn't want to
Mm.
be in the I. I'm
Yeah.
doing this and I'm doing that. So yeah,
Yeah, and I think it's, each because each reader has their own stories and their own backgrounds and their own
exactly.
hurts, they're writing the story differently in their mind as they're reading it too.
Oh yeah,
Because I've been on a health journey and I've lost a lot of weight recently, and I'm helping people do that too. And so I'm having the conversations that Harlow's having with herself are conversations I'm having with people on a daily basis, as we're all trying to find freedom from
that's right.
from this addiction. Really, it's an addiction, and we're turning to food for comfort, and when we can't find comfort in other ways, and so this is what, like, I'm like, oh, she's that, I just want to coach this girl and counsel her right
I
now,
know.
and
I know.
have her understand her worth and understand that that's not where she'll find her true comfort, anyway, as I'm reading, so
Yeah.
yeah, each of us has our own stories that we're applying as we read fiction.
Yeah, absolutely. And Harlow was a character because she deals with being overweight. And I've been in that journey. I've been in Weight Watchers for 6 years. And first time I was in, I lost 60 pounds. This time I lost
Hmm.
40. And so I totally relate to that. But also our mindset, even about
Hmm.
weight loss, was different in the 80s than it is now.
Oh
We had
yeah.
a little bit of a different approach. And then she's in an industry where, they actually literally measure your hip. You have to be a certain size. So even if she's 5'11", and 150 pounds was too much for her career. So
Wow.
right? So that for you and I, we'd love at 5'11",
I know
every
exactly. Let me do that. Yeah.
let's do that, yeah. So, I really wanted to be sensitive, just saying even now here for readers that might be listening, we really tried to be sensitive to all of us who may have various journeys in food or with food. And please, there's no condemnation for anybody. And I think that's
Mhm,
what
mhm.
I
Yeah.
tried to show. Harlow's journey is unique to her. It's her response
Mhm.
to food. And so if anybody's asking any questions, that's the question that we ask. What do I use food for? What's my response to food? And so for her, it's even actually more of a rebellion, but it was dealing with
Mhm.
who am I, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so good. Okay. So, series, is this gonna be part of a series? What's happening? I'm really enjoying this beautiful area and all that's happening there.
I know it turned out to be a really cute little town.
Uh-huh.
So again, relating to Trisha as an author, sometimes you start your next book and you're battling with characters, and you think, I just want to go to a city or a town that I can really envelop that I
Mm.
already know. And I've invented a couple of towns, and so I just thought I just did Sea Blue Beach for Meet Me at the Starlight. So I'm writing the Sands of Sea Blue Beach, and the Sands is a motor motel, throwback to the Route 66 motor
I
motels.
could picture the sign right now.
Right
Like, I
now,
could
right.
totally
You
picture the
see it
little
r
triangle arrow sign. I mean, I could picture it, yeah.
Hey, I gotta make a note on that. I haven't given her a sign yet, but she's on the
Yeah.
beach. She's in Sea Blue Beach. It's old, but we're totally contemporary. It's gonna be 2025 when the book comes out. And, so just went back there, and so I guess in a way we're continuing in the town, whether they haven't really classified it a series yet because I didn't present it as a series. I'm a kind of a, "Let me just write this book and let me see how it goes," kinda girl. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna go back to Sea Blue Beach, and this is gonna be a girl who's taking over the Gazette newspaper who's having some troubles, and a guy who grew up in town, uh, what's his name? Caleb, who's an architect who's coming back into town. And this book's gonna have a lot to do with family relationships. He's got a really
Mm.
strong struggle with his sister. She's had some she's gonna have a family background in her, story, but we're also gonna get to meet them when they were teenagers, when they first met, and when they first fell in love. So that's really been a fun journey for me to write their teenage story parallel to their adult story.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, that sounds so that is it in the '80s then? Again?
No, it's
The
gonna be
teenage story?
2025. It's gonna be
Okay, no,
2025.
but I mean the teenage
Oh,
story.
2009. Yeah,
That's
really.
really that's
16.
like it's
They're
so
16.
weird. I know
I
that's so
know.
weird that 2009.
Like,
Like, okay. Okay, it is 2024, I guess. That makes sense.
100%, I'm thinking 2009, so I'm like, "What kind of phone did they have? Did they have a phone? What kind of phone did they have? Were they on social media?" Okay, they probably could have been on Facebook by then, but they may have had a MySpace or a Xanga, so I'm
It was
throwing in
usually
some of
it
those
was
things.
like it was MySpace 2000 my kid. So I have a 35-year-old right now and a
So
30-year-old.
there
And yeah, they were on
That's
MySpace.
their age. They're like 31, 32, so they would be on
Mhm.
MySpace. And because I think when, Lost in Las Vegas, which is now Nashville Dreams, first came out, my first book with Thomas Nelson, 2007-ish, 2006, I was on MySpace, and I was thinking, "Hey, let me go see how many young ladies I can find to read my book on MySpace." I remember thinking that
Yeah,
way back
yeah.
then. So, yeah, some of those things, and did they text or call?
Yes, texting for sure.
For sure,
They were
'cause
definitely texting. Mhm. But
so
it was just that you had to pay for text. It was like 10 cents a text.
yeah, so maybe more like they'd be calling,
That's
uh,
true.
because I remember my husband was dealing with when he had gone back to work with the youth for a short season, and he was, like, calling them like he used to do, and nobody would return his call, but he'd text him and get a response in 20 seconds, and so that's
Yeah.
when he's like, "Oh my gosh, now I'm gonna have to really buy into this texting thing." Plus, we smartphones weren't as prevalent then as they are now, so
No, they
everybody,
weren't smartphone they didn't have a smartphone,
AAA,
but they could text.
they
Yeah,
could text, yeah.
because I remember we sent my daughter, who was a teenager, to my sister's house, but we got her a phone before she went. I think she was 16. We got her a phone before she went, and she just texted everyone the whole time because she finally had a phone. And my sister's like, all she is on her phone all the time. But it wasn't a smartphone; it was just a phone. But she's able to text her friends for the first time ever. Like so,
Yeah,
yeah, that was right
yeah.
around that time.
I remember getting off
Yeah,
the airline one time and the 2 young ladies in front of me off of a flight, and they had something like a BlackBerry, and they had super long fingernails, and they're just like
yeah,
back when you had to do AAA,
yeah,
D D D D D or DEC, whatever,
yeah.
you had to hit the button 3 or 4 times. and she was flying over that little keyboard.
Yeah, it's so funny, and it's yeah,
Yeah,
it seems like so long ago, but it really wasn't that long ago.
not
Oh,
that long ago.
yeah, so fun. Okay, so let's talk about some of your other books for those
Sure.
who may not be familiar with them. You mentioned your princess stories, which have like this mystical kind of fun twisty thing to it, which you just have to like go along with it. Like you can't like, how does this work? You just have to like enjoy the story. Like talk about
Enjoy
that
the
a
show.
little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
and then
So
talk about the wedding dress because people might
oh,
be familiar with the wedding
sure,
dress. Yeah.
people might be familiar with the wedding dress. So the first royals I wrote were, what were they called? The Royal Wedding Series. Yeah, the Royal Wedding Series. Once Upon a Prince, the first one of those was made into a Hallmark movie, so maybe some people have seen that. And yeah, there's always this kind of mystical thing where a character comes on, and if anybody's read any of my books, there's always a little bit of supernatural breaking into the natural, which is how I try to
Mhm.
introduce a spiritual thread. Like if we could see God breaking in right now, Trisha, what would we see or feel?
Yeah, yeah.
What might he say? What might he feel like? I've had friends who've seen feathers just fall from the ceiling inside their homes. I've smelled
Right,
fragrances before. So we all are aware of God being around us. And so
right.
that's what I try to use. And so, but then when you go into the fairy tale world of a girl becoming a princess, then I kind of push the bounds a little bit. So yes, and one of them, I think it was How to Catch a Prince. There was or Princess Everett. One of them. There, I remember the movie Brigadoon, and in the movie Brigadoon was Sid Therese and Gene Kelly. And this town appeared like every 100 years, and he got caught in that and falls in love with the girl. I haven't seen it in so long. So does he stay or does he come back out into the real world?
Yeah.
And so I created this inn that was that, like, it
Mhm.
just appeared just for the sake of drawing in my heroine into the life she was called into, and so that was really fun, and then when she realized her destiny, these god characters, these angel kind of characters, they weren't needed anymore, they went on to their next chore, and so they just
Yeah,
disappeared, and it's this kind of this freaky thing, and I sometimes wonder if all of us have those moments where we think, "Did that really happen?" You know,
yeah,
what did that
yeah,
person really just come and say that to me? Where'd they go? You know,
yeah.
so that's what I kinda draw that in just to add to the fairy tale aspect of the story,
Mhm.
the Cinderella, Snow White feeling of reading a princess story. And then there's another one called The True Blue Royals, and I drew in that family and that little country to see Blue Beach. See Blue Beach is founded by, an ancestor of the House of Blue. So, yeah, so those are kind of fun. And then, The Wedding Dress, most of you maybe have heard of that, but it was the one that man, that story just dropped into my heart one day. I was visiting some people in Tennessee, and the host was talking about her daughter getting married and putting on that perfect dress, and all of a sudden, I just went, boom, this wedding dress. What if four women wore it over 100 years? And oh, what if they're not related, but the dress finds
Mhm.
the right woman and it never wears out and it fits every woman who tries it on? And that took me a few iterations to get that one, but the immediate four women, 100 years, one dress just hit me so hard.
Yeah,
And then at the time, I looked it up right away. There was no The Wedding Dress book out there. I found nothing. Then within a few months or 6 months, there was the movie on Hallmark, which is not my movie, which is not my story, and then there's a couple of other The Wedding Dresses. You would think that would be such a go-to title, but
yeah,
I
right.
didn't find anything on my initial searches. So it's about 4 women who wear the dress over 100 years. The first woman and the last woman in the book are related, but the others in between are just women that the Lord really wanted to fit the dress. So it's a
Mhm.
metaphor for the gospel, that the gospel fits everyone who tries it on. It's always beautiful, it always fits, and it never goes out of style. So that's kind of the gist of that story. But lots of good things. It's set in Birmingham in 1912. So we take a look at some of the racial issues that were going on, and our protagonist in 1912 becomes an advocate to change some things like convict leasing. And then she ends up impacting the lives of those who follow her.
So good. I love that. Yeah, I love that concept of the wedding dress. We kinda have one. We had one that my daughter got married in, and so she's been married 10 years. And then my daughter now my daughter-in-law, when we were talking about going to look at dresses, and she's like, "I really like Leslie's dress." I'm like, "It's here." My daughter's a missionary in the Czech Republic, but her dress was at our house sealed up. I'm like, do you want to see? And we asked Leslie, like, can she wear it? She's like, yeah. And so we
That's
pulled it and it fit perfect. So we're like, so we have our
wow.
own wedding dress with my
Yep,
daughter and my daughter-in-law wore the
perfect.
same wedding dress and saved a lot of money for getting, because you had to get it fitted and all those things. So yeah, we have our own kind of wedding dress up in our,
That
it's in our attic now, all sealed up again. So maybe
I love that.
I have 7 daughters. So maybe this thing will continue. I don't know.
Continue
We'll
to be
see.
used, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much because I think it adds to the heart of the wedding, that it's not
Mhm.
just a pageant of fashion or what we think it should be. It's really saying, "I'm marrying into a family. This is about a
Yeah.
family." When we marry, it's not just you 2 and your party. It's about a new family that's attached to another family.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that, and the dress is very simple, very traditional with this like cap sleeves and soft lace on it. And so it's actually
Nice.
timeless. Like we didn't plan
Timeless.
that, but yeah, it was just ended up being nice. Yeah.
Absolutely
So
timeless, yeah.
fun. So fun. And you had that idea for a book. So
There we go.
I love
See?
it.
But
I
you can
love
write
it.
one too.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm writing lots of stuff. We're both writing lots of stuff all the
We
time.
are.
So
You are so busy.
do we have other you have other plans after the one that you're currently doing, or do you know what you're gonna do next, or
I don't. I'm actually was having that dialogue today, this morning, last night and this morning with my husband and the Lord. Like, what's next
Mhm.
is the last book on this particular contract. So I'm sure there'll be conversations
Oh,
ahead
yeah.
of me. But just kind of thinking through, I've been doing this, Trisha. This is my 20th year full time. In August, I quit my
Wow.
job 20 years ago, and probably 2 years before that, I no, maybe a year, I had gone to part time. But with this is a great story if you have time for this story. So
Yeah.
I said to the Lord, I want to do this. And of course, Christian fiction in the early 2000s and late 99 and late 90s, early 2000s, very new industry. And at the time
Yes.
was actually exploding. And I just kind of fell into that track. And I'd always wanted to be a writer. I just knew what my dad would say, Rachel, you're a writer, be a writer. I just didn't know how to break in, the steel door of the publisher, the steel door of the
Mhm.
agents, had been rejected for my first book that I wrote in the 90s, had been rejected a few times. And I've gone back into the corporate world. They kept calling, asking me to come back to work because I had quit. And the Lord even set me up for that. 1 year into our marriage, on our anniversary, the Lord's like, quit your job. So, okay, no kids. I had never not had a job. So I had a job since I was 14 years old. And
Mm.
at this time, I'm 32. And so I just started reading all the time. We didn't have TV. We read all the time, my husband and I, and we got a desktop computer, 93, 94, and I started writing. I
Yeah.
started writing the epic World War II novel. And anyway, so look, ended up back in the corporate world. And then I went to a conference. I met an author named Lynn Coleman, who you know.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, and she opened the door for me to write the little category heart song. For a month, came out every month from Barber Publishing, these heart song romances, which I originally looked at and said, "That's too sweet for me. I don't wanna write that." And that's just where God landed me. And so, I had one contract, and those contracts were like, $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, really, you're not gonna live on that kind of money. And I was a manager by now at the software company where I was working. And it was too much. We were doing ministry. We had multiple things going on with youth ministry. I just started leading worship. I was writing my first novel, that Lynn and I contracted together. I just did all the writing, which was the point to introduce me to the
Yeah.
publisher. And I was, for the first time in my life, and even in college when I'm going Mach 10, working, studying. I was in a sorority, all of those activities that I saw I can't handle the stress. The stress was really getting
Mm.
to me. So we saw our way clear to give up everything that paid the bills. I cut our household income in 2/3, quit my job, and just went from there. And the Lord just, when I was gonna tell my boss that I was quitting on my job, I went in on a Thursday and I couldn't do it. It was weird. I just felt, "No, I can't do it. I can't do it." The next day, I go in, it's Friday, and I go, "I can today. It's Friday. You quit on a Friday, right? Give your 2-week notice." In lunch, I typed out my resignation letter, and I was part-time, 20 hours, but I still had this huge interior office. I still had meetings and
Mm.
phone calls. I still talked to customers. I talked to engineers, and I volunteered several times to move back into customer support, give up my space. No, so stay where you are. We need you where you are. You can close door. You can have meetings. Da, da, da. So I type out my letter and I go and get it off the printer. I sit down. One of my coworkers comes in, manager in another section. He goes, "Hey, Rach," he goes, "you know that big job we have in London?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, Eric is going to be the project manager and he would really like your office." And I said, "Yeah,
Wow.
he can have it." The Lord did not allow them to take that office from me until I wrote out my resignation.
Wow.
So it
That
just
is
was
so cool.
kind of
And then
this.
that's a confirmation too, a
Yes,
confirmation that you never have to doubt if you did the right thing.
I was gonna say 100% confirmation, and, some things had gone on that maybe weren't always fair, but it
Mhm.
was just to me, like, that was, and I was going out with the right heart and the right attitude and just felt like you always wanna leave one place and go to another with that. So that
Mhm.
was 2004, August of 2004, so we're in 2024, so I leapt in and one little tiny book contract, and I've been going ever since.
I love it. I love how God does that and how your stories are just so beautiful and that he can continue to speak through you and you're so faithful to like, okay, Lord, what's next? And I think that's where we need to be. Okay, so I love that. Okay, my last
Yeah.
question is what is a Christian novel that you've really loved?
So many, but
I know.
there is one that impacted me when I needed to be impacted, and
Mm.
it was called Song of Abraham by Ellen Traylor Gunderson.
Yes, I knew her.
Did you
So, yeah, I used
really?
to live by her in Montana. Yes. Yeah.
Wow, that book.
Ellen Gunderson trailer.
Trailer.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I knew I was gonna get it backwards. Ellen Gunderson Trailer. I just came across that book in my early 20s. I was living in an apartment with other Christian women. I was going to junior college at the time, so it's before I went to Ohio State, and I read that book, and I took away from that, I wanted to be a friend of God. So I got saved when I was
Mm.
6. So I'd been kind of walking with the Lord, but I was a '70s kid. We didn't have a lot of Christian music and things like that. My parents were '50s teenagers, and so there wasn't, and the church that we were in was right during the Jesus Revolution. So my parents at 32, 33, 34, 5, they're the old guys.
Right, right,
They
right.
have teenagers. Everybody else is either got babies or not even married, trying to find a
Right.
spouse. So, yeah, I kinda, like, went the way of the world for a little while, but I just always had this thing in me that I wanted to be a friend of God, and that
Mm.
book was that gave me language for it, So, that's really been a lifelong, to this day, a lifelong pursuit and message, finding it in the Word, finding it in like-minded people, to be a friend of God, to be a friend of the bridegroom,
Mhm.
so.
I love that. I love that you share that. So Ellen, I met her because I started writing and I lived in Montana and she lived like 30 minutes south in a town called Polson. And we started a writers group and we asked her to come, me and Joanna Weaver started a writers
Wow.
group and we asked her to come up and speak at our writers group. And she came up and she talked about how she struggled, try to get published, couldn't get published. And God's like talking to her heart, like, you want this more than you want me. And she battled
Wow.
and battled. No, I don't. No, I don't. And she said, she got on her knees and said, if I never get it published, I will just write what you want me to write and relinquish it all. And as she was sharing this in this meeting, I'm like, I'm going to have to do that because actually, I think I do want to get published more than it's just like that. I want this. I want this. I was a teen mom. I got to prove myself, whatever.
Mm.
And I went home that day and I just like got on my knees and I'm like, okay, like I relinquish it if I never get published. And then very soon after that, God called me to help start a crisis pregnancy center. So the writing did get put on the side for a while, but then later I wanted to write sweet romances, Rachel, and then he gave me the idea for this deep, intense World War II novel, which I
Wow.
ended up writing from
Oh
Dust and
my
Ashes,
gosh.
and then also a book for teen moms. The same year I got a contract for my epic World War II novel and my book for teen moms, and it's been for me going ever since. And that was
Wow.
2001. So I love how Ellen Gunderson Trailer had such
Impacted us
a
both.
impacted us both. And she was a sweet. She passed away a couple years ago.
Oh, wow. I wish I could have
Yeah.
met her. Do you know, so my first book that I wrote was this epic World War II book. That's the one that got rejected. It's set in the Aleutian Islands. But I I think that is a constant prayer for me as
Mhm.
well. Do I want what writing can offer
Mhm.
more than you? So and that's navigating our world, navigating our
Mhm.
market, navigating with readers, navigating with each other. So how do I have a servant's heart even towards readers, and even towards my fellow authors and towards my publisher?
Mhm.
God, how do I have that towards you? And I think sometimes that's why I'm not a series writer, is because I'm not planned out that far ahead.
Right.
He may go, well, if you get a 3-book contract, then you're in it. God, I gotta honor the contract that they gave me and I
Right,
signed my
right.
name to. But, I don't know what you're gonna call me to write. I don't, and I'm not a fly by the seat of my pants. I don't believe that I get in the car and I'm going to the store and God said, go over to the beach. I gotta
Right.
go, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about I lay it all down. Every book,
Mhm.
I lay it all down because I don't want him to get in front of me, and I'm ambitious enough and I'm confident enough in my ability, which is kind of a good
Right.
thing, but yet the downside is you're always asking, well, I'm that good. I don't want to live like that, and that's why I never want
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
this career or any career to be in front of him. So,
Yep, absolutely, absolutely, I feel the same way. Oh, I love it, I love this conversation.
me
It's so
too.
awesome having you, I'm enjoying the book so much, I can't wait
Thank
when I get it
you.
next week on audio. So,
Oh, yeah, we
but,
gotta tell hey, everybody who likes audio, we have 3
yes.
actors. In fact, the guy who's headed up the recording, we had a conversation because he wanted some pronunciations, and it says he's talking to me, "Well, you know how actors are. So these aren't just readers, I think these are actors." And I said, "I have
Wow.
actors? That's so cool."
I cannot wait because
Me too.
I'm loving it just reading it, I cannot wait to hear how they're gonna
How
yeah,
they
it's
interpret it, it's
so
gonna be
fun.
so cool.
Yes! Yeah, I gotta work and I'm just gonna share this little story, then we'll wrap it up. But
Sure.
I gotta work on the book Mom signed out for the movie. So they did the movie first and then they asked me to write the
Yeah, that's
book to
right.
go with it. So I had the script and then I got to watch it. And the best actors were the ones they saw the dialogue, but they made it even better. Like it was better how they had it and how so they gave some of their influence, their artistry in it
Yes.
like Patricia Heaton.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, okay, I could read what this says, but then seeing her, I'm like, that's way funnier, and that's way. But I love that. So I love that. I can't wait. Even the inflection of the
See
actors,
what they
it's going to
I'm
be,
curious to see what they bring
yes,
to it, like, what kind of inflections yeah, so that's so
that's
cool,
so
and
good.
that would be a fun thing to do,
Yeah,
novelization, so
it was so great. Okay, so where can people go to find your books and know more about you?
Sure, you can find me on my website excuse me, Rachel Hauck, Hauck, rachelhauck.com, and, of course, I'm on Insta, Facebook, X, those are my big ones. I'm a little bit on TikTok, but just you can only do so much.
I can't. I'm
Yeah,
not into. I mean, I'd post a little bit, but it's. I can't. That's a whole nother
that's
whole
a whole
nother world.
It's a whole
Yeah.
other world. It's a whole other discipline now. It's content
Hmm.
creator. Well, this is me content creating, a book.
Yeah.
But also, guys, sign up for my newsletter. Go to
Yeah.
rachelhauck.com. Sign up for my newsletter because that is really the best way and the best place to keep in touch and
Mhm.
find out what's going on. I only send out once a month and write things there that I don't put anywhere else. So you get a little bit of behind the scenes look at things and
I love
inspirational
it.
things that I try to communicate.
I love it. Well, thank you, friend, for being here.
Thank you, friend, for having me. It's really good to see you.